Captain June Kim stood at the window of the Earth Embassy on Lyrics Prime. He watched the alien ships come and go in the busy spaceport. His face showed no emotion, but inside, his anger grew with each passing second. He read the paper in his hand again, hoping the words would somehow change. They did not. "This cannot be real," he said to the empty room. The paper was official. It had the gold seal of the Galactic Confederation on it. The words were simple, but their meaning was huge. All human music was now banned in Confederation space. June had been Earth's top diplomat for 3 years. In that time, he had dealt with many strange alien requests. One species wanted humans to wear masks because human faces scared their children. Another would only talk to humans who had eaten special blueberries first. June had found ways to work with all these odd rules. But this was different. The door to his office slid open. His assistant Mina walked in, her face showing the same shock he felt. "Have you seen this?" she asked, holding up her own copy of the decree. "Yes," said June. "The silence decree. They really did it." Mina shook her head. "But why? How can music be harmful?" June pointed to the part of the decree that tried to explain. "The Lyrians say our music causes them physical pain. They say the vibrational patterns hurt their inner ears and can even damage their brains." "That's ridiculous," said Mina. "We've been sharing music with them for years." "Limited music," June corrected. "Mostly classical pieces, some soft jazz. All carefully chosen not to offend." June sat down at his desk and pulled up the records on his screen. For 10 years, Earth had been part of the Galactic Confederation. It had been a rocky start. Humans were still new to space travel, and the 53 other species in the Confederation had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Many of them had not wanted to let Earth join. Humans were seen as too aggressive, too emotional, too unpredictable. But Earth had resources that the Confederation wanted, mainly water and certain rare metals. So they had been allowed in, barely. Now this. "We need to call Earth," said June. "This is going to cause big problems." Mina nodded. "The trade deals." "Exactly. If we can't send our diplomats to Confederation meetings, those deals will fall apart." June ran his hand through his short black hair. "They know this. The Lyrians planned this." The Lyrians were the most powerful species in the Confederation. They looked a bit like tall, thin deer that walked on 2 legs. Their huge ears could hear sounds humans couldn't even imagine. They were also masters at politics. This ban was not just about music. It was about pushing humans away from the center of power. Back on Earth, in Seoul, Hanbit Lee got the news while teaching a class at the Global Music Institute. Her assistant handed her a note during her lecture. She read it, excused herself, and ran to her office. Hanbit was not just a music teacher. She was also part of Earth's diplomatic team. Her special job was to study how different species responded to human music and art. Now, it seemed, her work had just become much more important. She logged into the secure system and read the full decree. It was worse than she thought. The ban started in just 30 days. After that, no human music could be played, performed, or even stored on devices in Confederation space. Any human caught breaking this rule would be sent back to Earth. Any alien who helped humans break the rule would face serious punishment. Hanbit began to look through her research files. Something didn't add up. In her studies, many alien species had positive reactions to human music. Some even created new forms of art after hearing Earth songs. Yes, the Lyrians were more sensitive than most, but they had never shown signs of actual pain before. She pulled up the test results from the last official music exchange. The Lyrians had been given samples of human music to study. Hanbit checked what had been sent. Mozart, some gentle folk songs, a few simple pop tunes. "That's it," she whispered. They never heard the full range. Hanbit quickly sent a message to June on Lyrics Prime. She needed more information. What exactly had caused the Lyrians to issue this ban now? Had they somehow been exposed to other types of human music? As she waited for a response, Hanbit's personal device buzzed. It was a message from an old friend, Taehyun Park. He worked as an engineer for the military but had studied sound design with Hanbit years ago. The message was brief. Heard the news? I have an idea. Meet me at the old club tonight. Hanbit smiled. If anyone could think outside the box, it was Taehyun. The old club was called The Basement. Years ago, it had been the center of Seoul's underground metal scene. Now it was mostly empty, but Taehyun still owned it and kept it open for special events. When Hanbit arrived, she found Taehyun setting up some equipment on the stage. He was tall and thin with long fingers, perfect for the complex guitar playing he loved. He waved her over. Listen to this, he said, turning on his equipment. The sound that came out was so low that Hanbit could barely hear it, but she could feel it in her chest, a deep rumble that made the floor shake slightly. What is this? She asked. Infrasound, said Taehyun. Sound waves below the range of human hearing, but we can still feel them. He adjusted some settings. Now, what if I add this? He picked up his guitar and began to play. The music was heavy, with complex rhythms and deep growling notes. Death, metal, Hanbit recognized. Not her preferred style, but impressive in its technical skill. I don't understand, she said. What does this have to do with the ban? Taehyun stopped playing. I've been studying alien biology as a side project. The Lyrians have incredible hearing, yes, but it's not the same as ours. There are certain frequencies they simply cannot detect. Hanbit's eyes widened as she began to understand. You're saying we could create music they can't hear? Exactly, said Taehyun. Not just music, a whole new way to communicate. Look at this. He showed her a design on his tablet. It looked like a normal speaker system, but with strange additions Hanbit didn't recognize. I call it the subatomic subwoofer, said Taehyun. It can project sound waves across huge distances, but only at frequencies that certain species can detect. So the Lyrians wouldn't hear anything, said Hanbit, excitement growing in her voice. Not a thing, confirmed Taehyun, but many other species in the Confederation would. The Dracs, for example, communicate using very low frequencies. They might love death metal if they could hear it properly. Hanbit sat down, her mind racing. We need to test this, and we need to understand exactly why the ban was put in place. Her device buzzed. June was finally responding to her earlier message. She read it quickly and looked up at Taehyun. You were right. A human trading ship played some music during a stop at a Lyrian moon colony. The captain had a fondness for classical music, but his crew liked heavy metal. Someone switched the music during a local festival. Let me guess, said Taehyun with a small smile. The Lyrians didn't like it. They said it caused mass panic. 3 Lyrians collapsed and had to be treated for ear damage. Hanbit paused. But June found something interesting. The other species at the festival had different reactions. The Dracs actually asked for copies of the music. Taehyun nodded. Just as I thought. This isn't about protecting sensitive ears. It's politics. The Lyrians want to keep humans at a distance. Hanbit stood up, new determination in her eyes. Then we need to find a way around it. Not to break the rules, but to show that human music isn't harmful to everyone. She looked at Taehyun's equipment. How quickly can you build more of these subwoofers? With help? A month or 2, said Taehyun. But we'd need official support, and someone to test it in Confederation space. Hanbit smiled. Leave that to me. I know just the person. She pulled up a picture on her device. A woman in a space uniform with commander stripes. Mi-yeon Kang, former death metal vocalist, current astronaut. And she owes me a favor. The first pieces of Earth's musical response were falling into place. The silence decree had been meant to push humans away from the galactic community. Instead, it would lead to one of humanity's greatest diplomatic triumphs. June Kim, still standing in his office on Lyrix Prime, didn't know it yet, but help was coming, and it would arrive with the loudest, deepest bass drop the galaxy had ever felt. 6 months had passed since the silence decree. Deep under the streets of Seoul, in an old bomb shelter from the wars of the past century, Project Resonance was taking shape. Hanbit Lee stood in the center of the main room. Around her, 20 people worked at different stations, Some built strange-looking speakers. Others tested sound waves on screens. In one corner, a group played odd-looking instruments, stopping often to change things and try again. "How is the low-frequency test coming?" Hanbit asked a young woman adjusting a large bass guitar. "Good," said the woman Yunji. "We can now hit notes 3 octaves lower than normal human hearing. The Drac should feel these right in their chest cavity, where their hearing organs are." Hanbit nodded and moved to the next station. Here, Taehyun worked with his team on the subatomic subwoofer prototypes. The devices no longer looked like normal speakers. Now they were smooth, round objects about the size of a basketball. "We solved the power problem," said Taehyun without looking up from his work. "Each unit can now run for 72 hours on a single charge, and they can connect to form a network, strengthening the signal." "Perfect," said Hanbit. "And they're still undetectable to Lyrian sensors?" "Completely," said Taehyun with a small smile. "We tested them on the Lyrian trade ship that docked last week. Their security systems didn't even blink. This was the beauty of their plan. The Silence Decree banned human music, but it defined music by the standards of human and Lyrian hearing. These new devices produced sounds outside that range. Technically, they weren't breaking any rules." Hanbit checked the time. "Mion should be arriving soon. Everyone get ready for a full demonstration." The door at the far end of the room opened. 2 security guards entered first, checking the area. Then came Mion Kang. She was shorter than most people expected, but she had a presence that filled the room. Her space uniform showed her rank as commander, and several medals hung from her chest. "Hanbit," she said, giving her old friend a quick hug. "Your message said this was important enough to pull me from flight training. It better be good." "It's better than good," said Hanbit. "It could save our position in the Confederation." She led Mion through the lab, explaining Project Resonance as they walked. Mion listened carefully, asking smart questions about the technology and the plan. "So," she said when they reached the testing area, "you want me to lead a mission into Confederation space with these special speakers and play music that the Lyrians can't hear but other species can. All to prove that human music isn't universally harmful." "Exactly," said Hanbit. "But not just any music. We need something powerful, something that will make an impression." She looked at Mion with hopeful eyes. "We need death metal. Your old specialty." Mion hadn't performed in years. After her band Lunar Eclipse broke up, she had joined the space program. She had a new life now, but she still kept her old vocal exercises as part of her daily routine. "Don't know," said Mion. "It's been a long time." "Please," said Hanbit. "Just listen to what we've created." She nodded to Taehyun, who pressed a button on his control panel. At first, Mion heard nothing. Then, slowly, she felt it. A deep rumble in her bones, a pressure in her chest. It wasn't quite sound, but something more physical. Then Yunji began to play her modified bass guitar. The notes were so low they were almost painful, but in a good way. 2 other musicians joined in, one on drums with extra-large kick drums, another on a guitar tuned to impossible depths. "This is what the Dracs would hear," explained Hanbit. "And the Vosh would feel this." She adjusted another control, and a high, almost silent whine filled the air. It made Mion's teeth hurt slightly. "Turn it off," said Mion after a minute. When the sound stopped, she stood in silence for a moment. "You've created something new here. Not just music, but a form of communication." "Yes," said Hanbit eagerly, "but we need your voice to complete it. The death growl technique hits frequencies that bypass Lyrian hearing completely, but resonates strongly with at least 8 other Confederation species." Mion walked over to the microphone set up in the Yao center of the testing area. She hadn't held a mic like this in years. It felt right in her hand. "What do you want me to sing?" she asked. "Whatever comes to mind," said Taehyun. "This is just a test." Mion closed her eyes. The band began to play again, the strange mix of frequencies washing over her. She took a deep breath and let out a growl that started in her stomach and tore through her throat. The sound was raw, powerful, primal. When she opened her eyes, everyone in the room was staring at her with wide eyes and open mouths. "What?" she asked, suddenly self-conscious. "That was incredible," said Hanbit, checking the readings on her screen. "Your voice hit 5 different frequency ranges at once, 3 of them completely outside Lyrian hearing. The Drax would feel that like a religious experience." Mion couldn't help but smile. It had felt good, like coming home. "Okay," she said. "I'm in. But I have conditions. I choose my own crew. And we do this right. Not just a demonstration, but a real performance." 2 weeks later, Mion stood in a large hangar, looking at her new ship. The HSS Crescendo was not a warship or a normal diplomatic vessel. It had been specially modified for Project Resonance. "She's beautiful," said a voice behind her. Mion turned to see Donghyun Cho, her old bandmate and bass player for Lunar Eclipse. He carried a large case that surely held his bass guitar. "You came," said Mion with a smile. "When you said you were getting the band back together for a space mission, how could I say no?" Donghyun looked at the ship. "So this is going to be our stage." "The biggest stage we've ever played," confirmed Mion. "The entire Confederation." More people arrived at the hangar. Some were musicians Mion had selected. Others were diplomats, sound engineers, and space crew. One woman walked straight up to Mion and introduced herself. "Jiwoo Bai," she said, shaking Mion's hand firmly. "Diplomatic Corps, specializing in Confederation neurology and communication." "Neurology?" asked Mion. "I study how different species' brains process information," explained Jiwoo, "including music. I've been working with the Project Resonance team to predict how various species will react to your performance." Mion raised an eyebrow. "And how will they react?" Jiwoo smiled. "The Drax should love it. Their war drums use similar frequencies. The Vosh might be overwhelmed at first, they're empaths and your music carries strong emotions, but they should adapt quickly." "And the Lyrians won't hear a thing," added Donghyun. "That's the plan," said Jiwoo. "Though they might feel some vibrations if you really crank up the bass." A loud announcement called everyone to attention. It was time for the mission briefing. Mion led her team into the conference room. On the main screen was a map of Lyrix Prime and its moon, where the annual Confederation Assembly would take place in 1 month. Captain Jun Kim's face appeared on a smaller screen, broadcasting from the Earth Embassy. "Commander Kang," he said, formally. "Your mission has been officially approved. On paper, you are leading a silent-running diplomatic vessel to observe the assembly from orbit. No mention of music or performance." "Understood," said Mion. "We'll comply with the letter of the law." "The stakes are high," continued June. "If we fail, Earth could lose its place in the Confederation. Our trade deals would collapse." "We won't fail," said Mion with confidence. "Project Resonance is ready." As the briefing continued, Mion felt a mix of excitement and fear. It had been years since she performed, and never with so much at stake. But deep down she knew this was right. Music had always been humanity's way to connect, to express, to bridge gaps. Why should that change just because they'd reached the stars in 3 days they would launch? In 1 month they would arrive at Lyrix Prime, and then the galaxy would feel the power of human music, whether they could hear it or not. The journey to Lyrix Prime took 3 weeks. During that time, the crew of the HSS Crescendo practiced daily. They weren't just preparing music, they were creating a new form of communication. Mion stood on the bridge of the ship, looking at the view screen. Lyrix Prime was now visible, a blue-green planet with 3 small moons. Around it, hundreds of ships moved in careful patterns like a dance. "Status report," Mion said to her crew. "All systems normal," said the pilot. "We're on approach vector. Lyrian control has cleared us to enter orbit." "Any questions about our cargo or mission?" asked Mion. "None," said Jiwoo, who handled communications. "They accepted our story that we're a diplomatic observation vessel. The silence decree isn't even mentioned." Mion nodded. "And the other ships?" "5 Earth vessels all in position," reported Donghyun. each one carrying subatomic subwoofers and musicians. They're ready when we are. Mion took a deep breath. This was it. After months of planning, they were about to attempt something never done before, a concert that spanned an entire star system, heard by some species but not others. Send the signal, she ordered. Begin final preparations. We perform when the assembly starts. On the surface of Lyrics Prime, Captain Jun Kim adjusted his formal uniform. The annual Confederation Assembly was a big event. Representatives from all 37 member species would attend. Important decisions would be made. Trade deals would be signed. Usually humans played a small role in these meetings, but this year was different. The Silence Decree had pushed Earth to the edges of Confederation politics. Many species now avoided dealing with humans, afraid of angering the powerful Lyrians. June entered the Grand Chamber, a massive room with seating arranged by species. The Lyrian section was at the center, elevated above the rest. Humans had been placed near the back, far from the important action. As June took his seat, he noticed something odd. Several species seemed restless. The Dracs, tall warriors with thick gray skin, kept looking around as if searching for something. The Vosh, small blue beings with large expressive eyes, were whispering to each other more than usual. A Lyrian official approached June. Earth representative, he said in the formal Confederation language, we are pleased you respect our decree. No music has been detected from your ships. June bowed slightly. We follow the rules of the Confederation. The Lyrian seemed satisfied and moved away. June checked his watch. The assembly would begin in 10 minutes, right on schedule for Mion's plan. Back on the crescendo, Mion stood in what had once been the ship's cargo bay. Now it was a concert stage. Around her, the band was ready. Dongyun with his massive modified bass, 3 other musicians with drums and guitars, sound engineers at control panels, all wearing special earpieces that would let them hear each other over the strange frequencies they were about to create. Are you nervous? Asked Jiwoo, who would monitor the reactions of different species during the performance. A little, admitted Mion. It's been a long time since I performed and never with so much at stake. You'll be amazing, said Jiwoo with a smile. And remember, most of the Confederation won't even know where the music is coming from at first. That was part of the plan. The subatomic subwoofers could project sound across vast distances. The music would seem to come from everywhere and nowhere. 1 minute to assembly start, announced a voice over the ship's speakers. Mion took her place at the center of the stage. She closed her eyes and found that calm place inside herself, the source of her powerful voice. When she opened them again, she was ready. Let's make some noise, she said to her band. In 3, 2, 1. In the grand chamber, the Lyrian high speaker tapped on his communication device, signaling the start of the assembly. As was tradition, he began with a speech about unity and cooperation among the stars. Suddenly, the Drax delegation sat up straight. Their eyes widened. The Vosh stopped whispering and looked around in confusion. Even the Zentari, who rarely showed emotion, seemed surprised. The Lyrian high speaker continued his speech, unaware of the strange behavior spreading through the chamber. Only the Lyrians, with their specific range of hearing, noticed nothing unusual. June felt it before he heard it, a deep vibration in his chest, then the faintest hint of bass notes. It grew stronger, building like a wave. Soon he could make out the complex rhythms of death metal drums, the growling bass lines, and finally, cutting through it all, Mion's powerful vocals. It was working. The music was reaching the chamber, carried by the subatomic subwoofers in orbit. And just as planned, the Lyrians couldn't hear it at all. The effect on the other species was amazing to watch. The Dracs began to sway slightly, their large bodies moving to the rhythm. Several were making low rumbling sounds, their version of appreciation. The Vosh had their eyes closed, their skin changing colors in time with the music, showing the emotions they were feeling. Even species that humans knew little about were reacting. The gas-based Zentari were pulsing with internal light. The insect-like krill were vibrating their wing cases in what seemed like harmony with the bass line. For 20 minutes, the concert continued. The Lyrians remained completely unaware, continuing their formal procedures while chaos of appreciation erupted around them. Finally, a Drax warrior stood up. He was tall even for his species, with ceremonial scars covering his gray skin. He wore the marks of a high-ranking general. "What is this wonder?" he demanded in a voice that shook the chamber. "Who creates these battle rhythms?" The Lyrian High Speaker stopped mid-sentence, confused. "What do you mean, Drax General Karan? What rhythms?" "You do not feel them?" asked the Drax in surprise. "The powerful vibrations that speak to the warrior soul? They fill this room." Now more representatives were standing. A Vosh diplomat stepped forward, her skin glowing bright purple with emotion. "It is like nothing we have experienced," she said. "It carries such strong feelings, joy and anger and strength all mixed together." The Lyrian High Speaker looked around in confusion. "I sense nothing unusual." June saw his chance. This was the moment they had planned for. He stood and raised his hand for attention. "If I may address the assembly," he said formally. The Lyrian High Speaker hesitated, then nodded. "Earth may speak." June walked to the center of the chamber, where all could see him. "What you are experiencing is human music," he announced. "Music created at frequencies that some species can hear and feel, while others, including our friends the Lyrians, cannot detect." Gasps and murmurs filled the room. The Lyrians still looked confused, but now also worried. The Silence Decree. "Banned human music because it was harmful to Lyrian hearing," continued June. "We have respected that ban. The music you now experience cannot be heard by Lyrians. It causes them no pain or discomfort." The Drax General Karan stepped forward. "This is your human music? These powerful rhythms?" "One form of it," said June. "What you hear is a style called death metal. It's particularly suited to translation into the frequencies you can feel most strongly. It speaks to the warrior heart," said Karan with approval. "Where is it coming from?" June smiled. "Allow me to introduce Commander Mi-Yon Kang and her crew, broadcasting from orbit above us." He activated the large view screen at the front of the chamber. Mi-Yon's face appeared, still flushed from her performance. "Greetings, representatives of the Confederation," she said. "I hope you enjoyed our musical offering." The chamber erupted in sound. Many species were trying to speak at once. The Drax were pounding their chests in appreciation. The Vosh were humming in harmony. And through it all, the Lyrians looked completely lost, unable to understand what had caused such excitement. The harmonic rebellion had begun, and Earth was about to change its place in the galaxy forever. Chaos filled the grand chamber. The Lyrian High Speaker banged his ceremonial staff on the floor, trying to restore order. The sound echoed through the room, but few paid attention. Most representatives were still reacting to the human music and the shocking revelation. "Silence!" shouted the High Speaker. "This is an outrage, an attack on our proceedings." Drax General Karan turned to face him. "Attack? This is no attack. This is art." The word seemed strange coming from the warrior's mouth. The Drax were known for many things, but not their appreciation of art. "It is a clear violation of the Silence Decree," insisted the High Speaker. "Is it?" asked June Kim, still standing in the center of the chamber. "The decree bans human music that can be heard by Lyrians. This music cannot be heard by your people. We have respected the letter of your law." The High Speaker's large ears twitched in anger. "This is trickery, deception." "This is adaptation," corrected June. "Humans finding a way to share our culture without causing harm." More voices joined the debate. A Vosh representative stepped forward, her skin now a calm blue color. "The music touched our hearts," she said. "We felt emotions we have never experienced before. Why would you deny us this?" The Lyrian High Speaker looked around, realizing he was losing control of the situation. "The decree was passed for the safety of all species," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Was it?" This new voice came from Sunwoo Kim, Earth's ambassador who had just entered the chamber. He walked with purpose to stand beside June. Or was it past because the Lyrians tested only a small sample of human music and decided all of it was harmful? Sunwoo activated his data pad and projected images into the center of the room. These are the test results from the Lyrian music. Safety Commission. Notice something strange? The images showed sound waves and test results. Most species couldn't understand the technical details, but they could see what Sunwoo was pointing out. The tests had been run on only a few types of human music, and all at frequencies that would be painful to Lyrian hearing. You never tested the full range of human musical expression, said Sunwoo. You never considered that music could be adapted for different biological needs. The high speaker was speechless for a moment. Then he turned to his advisors, whispering, urgently. The other Lyrians looked worried. Their plan was falling apart. We have a proposal, said June, seizing the moment. Commander Kang, please join us. On the view screen, Mi-yeon nodded. I'll be there in 20 minutes, she said before the screen went dark. In the small meeting room off the main chamber, representatives from 12 species gathered. The Lyrians had sent a junior diplomat, showing their displeasure. The Dracs, on the other hand, had sent General Karan himself. The Vosh were represented by their head empath, Shiru. Other species had sent curious delegates eager to learn more about this strange human music. Mi-yeon entered, still wearing her performance clothes, black pants and a simple shirt with the Earth logo. With her came Dong-yeon carrying his bass guitar and Ji-woo ready to translate the complex scientific concepts. Thank you for coming, said Mi-yeon. We wanted to explain what you experienced and what it might mean for the future. Ji-woo stepped forward with her data pad. What you heard, or felt, was music created specifically for your species' hearing range. She showed diagrams of sound waves. Humans can adapt our music to be enjoyed by any species without bothering those who might find certain frequencies painful. Like the vibration massage parlors on Zentari Prime, said a gaseous being pulsing with light as it spoke. Exactly, said Ji-woo with a smile. Different species enjoy different sensations. We can tailor our music to match. General Karan stepped closer to Dong-yeon's bass guitar. This instrument creates the deep battle rhythms? It does, said Dong-yeon. Would you like to feel it? He played a simple riff, the notes so low they rumbled through the floor. Karan's eyes widened in appreciation. The Dracs have war drums, he said, but nothing that speaks so clearly to the warrior spirit. The Vosh representative, Shiru, moved her small hand through the air near the bass. And we feel the emotion behind the notes. The intent of the player shapes the feeling. Mi-yeon nodded. That's what makes music special. It's not just sound. It's communication. Emotion given form. The Lyrian representative had been quiet, but now he spoke. This is all very interesting, but it does not change the fact that you violated the spirit of the decree. We followed the rules exactly, said June. But perhaps the rules need to change. Music isn't a weapon to be banned. It's a bridge between different minds. Sunwoo stepped forward with a formal document. We propose an amendment to the silence decree. Instead of banning human music, let's create guidelines for music sharing. Each species can register which frequencies are comfortable and which are painful. All members would respect these boundaries. Harmonic exchange protocol, suggested Mi-yeon. The representatives looked at each other. The idea was new, but it made sense. Why ban something completely when it could be adapted to suit different needs? The Dracs support this proposal, said General Karan immediately. As do the Vosh, added Shiru. One by one, the other representatives voiced their support. Only the Lyrian remained silent. The full assembly must vote, he said finally. But I will take your proposal to my superiors. As the meeting broke up, June pulled Mi-yeon aside. This went better than we hoped, he said quietly. But the Lyrians won't give up easily. They've held power in the Confederation for too long. Then, we need to show them the benefits of cooperation, said Mi-yeon. I have an idea. Back on the crescendo, Mi-yeon gathered her crew. We need to create something new, she told them. Not just human music adapted for alien ears, but truly interspecies music. What do you mean? Asked Dongyun. I mean we invite musicians from other species to join us. Create something together that's never existed before. Jiwoo looked thoughtful. It could work. The Dracs have their war drums. The Vosh use harmonic humming in their ceremonies. Even the Zentari create vibration patterns that could be considered music. But what about the Lyrians? Asked one of the sound engineers. They'll never participate. We create something they can enjoy too, said Mion. Music that spans all frequency ranges, with each species hearing the parts that work for them. Like an orchestra where different listeners focus on different instruments. For the next 3 days, the crescendo became a center of cultural exchange. Musicians from 8 species came aboard to work with Mion's team. They brought strange instruments, unusual vocal techniques, and new ways of thinking about sound and music. The Dracs brought massive war drums that created vibrations you could feel from 3 rooms away. The Vosh taught the humans their empathic humming, which somehow carried the emotions of the singer directly to the listener's mind. The Zentari demonstrated how they could create complex patterns of vibration within their gaseous bodies. It was challenging work. Some species couldn't even hear what others considered the most important parts of a song. But slowly, something new began to emerge. A piece of music with many layers, each designed for different biological hearing ranges, but all working together, in harmony. Meanwhile, in the Grand Chamber, debate raged about the proposed amendment. The Lyrians argued that the humans had acted in bad faith. Other species pointed out that the music had caused no harm and had actually created new bonds between members of the Confederation. The vote was scheduled for the final day of the assembly. It would decide not just the fate of human music in space, but potentially Earth's place in the galactic community. If they lost, the Lyrians might push for even stricter rules against humans. June and Sunwoo worked tirelessly, speaking with representatives from every species making their case, but they knew that words alone might not be enough. They needed Mion's new creation to sway the undecided voters. With just hours before the final vote, Mion sent a message to June. We're ready. Prepare the chamber for the performance of a lifetime. The final day of the Confederation Assembly arrived. The Grand Chamber was packed with representatives from all 37 member species. The vote on the proposed harmonic exchange protocol was the last item on the agenda. Jun Kim stood with Sunwoo near the Earth section, both dressed in formal diplomatic uniforms. They watched as the Lyrian High Speaker called for final statements before the vote. This is it, said Sunwoo quietly. Everything we've worked for comes down to the next hour. June nodded. Mion's team is ready. Once all statements are made, we'll make our request. One by one, representatives came forward to give their positions. The Dracs, the Vosh, and several other species spoke strongly in favor of the new protocol. The Lyrians and their closest allies argued just as strongly against it. Many remained undecided, waiting to see which way the political winds blew. When all scheduled speakers had finished, June raised his hand. Earth requests permission for a demonstration before the vote. The High Speaker's ears twitched with annoyance. What kind of demonstration? A musical performance, said June. One created jointly by members of 8 Confederation species, including humans. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Such a thing had never been done before. This is highly irregular, said the High Speaker. Music has no place in formal proceedings. General Karan of the Dracs stood up. The Dracs support this demonstration. How can we vote on music without hearing it? Hear, hear, shouted a Zentari representative, their gas body flashing with bright colors. The High Speaker looked around the room, sensing the mood. Denying the request might alienate too many members. Very well, he said reluctantly. A brief demonstration only. June nodded to Sunwoo, who sent a message on his device. Minutes later, the doors to the chamber opened. Mion entered, followed by musicians from 7 alien species. They carried an odd assortment of instruments. Some were recognizable, like Dongyun's bass guitar. Others were completely alien. A Vosh emotion harp, Drax war drums, a Zentari vibration sphere. Most surprising of all was a Lyrian musician who entered last, carrying a delicate string instrument that looked something like a cross between a harp and a violin. The high speaker's ears stood straight up in shock. "What is the meaning of this? Rena, you joined these humans?" The Lyrian musician bowed slightly. "High speaker, I was curious about their project. What I found was enlightening." Mion and her unusual orchestra took their places in the center of the chamber. To one side, Jiwoo sat at a control panel that would manage the complex mix of frequencies their performance would create. "Representatives of the Confederation," said Mion, her voice strong and clear. "What you are about to experience is something new. Music created not by one species for others to hear, but by many species working together, each contributing sounds that speak to their own biological and cultural understanding of harmony." She turned to her fellow musicians. "Those with sensitive hearing may wish to use the protective devices we've provided. The performance contains elements across all frequency ranges, but no single species will hear all parts." Small earplugs were distributed to the Lyrians and other species with sensitive hearing. The Lyrian musician, Rena, already wore a pair, specially designed to block only the frequencies that would cause discomfort. When all were ready, Mion nodded to Jiwoo at the control panel. "We call this piece Universal Harmony. It is our gift to the Confederation." For a moment there was complete silence. Then slowly it began. The Zentari started with a low vibration that wasn't quite sound, but more a feeling in the bones. The Dracs joined in with deep, powerful drums that matched the rhythm of a heartbeat. Dongyun's bass added complex patterns that wove around the drum beats. Layer by layer, more instruments joined. The Vosh emotion harp sent waves of feeling through the room. First curiosity, then wonder, then joy. 3 other alien musicians added sounds that human ears couldn't fully process but somehow felt right. Then Mion began to sing. She started with a clear, pure tone that any species could appreciate. Gradually, she added techniques from her death metal days, but refined and controlled. The growls and screams were still there, but transformed into something more universal, carrying emotion that transcended language. Most amazing of all was when Rena, the Lyrian musician, began to play her string instrument. The sounds she created were so high and delicate that many species couldn't hear them at all. But the Lyrians in the room suddenly sat up straight, their ears moving in patterns of appreciation. For 7 minutes, the music filled the chamber. Each species heard something different, yet somehow it all worked together. It was like hearing only part of a conversation but still understanding the full meaning. When the final notes faded away, the chamber was completely silent. Then General Karan of the Dracs stood up and beat his chest in a gesture of highest respect. The Vosh representatives began to hum in harmony, their skin glowing with bright, happy colors. Even the normally reserved Zentari pulsed with light patterns that indicated deep appreciation. Most surprising were the Lyrians. Many had removed their protective earplugs and were making the soft trilling sound that was their equivalent of applause. The Bay high speaker looked around in confusion. "You enjoyed this noise?" "Not noise, high speaker," said Rena, the Lyrian musician. "Music, but not as we have understood it before. The humans helped me create sounds that speak to Lyrian ears while other parts speak to other species." Mion stepped forward. "This is what we propose with the harmonic exchange protocol. Not forcing one species' idea of music on others, but creating ways for all to share their art safely and respectfully." The high speaker's ears twitched as he thought. Finally, he said, "Perhaps we have been hasty in our judgment of human music." June saw his opening. "Then let us vote on the protocol. Let the Confederation decide if music should be banned or shared." When the vote came, it wasn't even close. 33 species voted to replace the silence decree with the new harmonic exchange protocol. Only the Lyrians and 3 of their closest allies voted against it. As the assembly closed, representatives from many species approached the human delegation. Some wanted to learn more about Earth music. Others offered to share their own musical traditions. Even a few Lyrians came, curious despite their government's position. 3 months later, Mion stood on the observation deck of the Interspecies Conservatory of Musical Arts. The new space station orbited a neutral point between 3 major Confederation worlds. As the conservatory's first director, Mion had overseen its rapid construction and opening. "Quite a view," said Hanbit, who had come from Earth for the opening ceremony. "And quite a sound," added Taehyun, pointing to where his subatomic subwoofer technology had been installed throughout the station, allowing music to be heard perfectly by any species. Below them, in the main concert hall, musicians from 22 species practiced together. The music they created was unlike anything that had existed before. Complex, multi-layered, with parts that only certain species could hear, but all could feel. "We did more than save human music," said Mion as she watched. "We created something new." June, now promoted to Earth's head diplomat, nodded in agreement. "And Earth's position in the Confederation has never been stronger. Trade deals are being renegotiated in our favor. We've been invited to scientific councils previously closed to us. All because we sent death metal and subwoofers to space," said Dongyun with a laugh. "No," said Mion, smiling at her friends, "because we refused to be silenced, and because we found a way to turn difference into harmony." In the concert hall below, a Lyrian musician played alongside a human guitarist, each creating sounds the other couldn't hear, but both feeling the same rhythm that connected them across the biological divide. Around them, representatives from a dozen species listened, each experiencing something unique yet connected. On the view screen above the stage, the new Confederation motto glowed in multiple languages: "Many voices, one harmony." That night, as Mion prepared for bed in her quarters on the station, she received a message from Captain June Kim. It contained only a short audio file, a recording from Earth's first contact with alien life, decades ago. The message humans had sent into space, hoping someone would hear. It had taken death metal and subwoofers to make it happen, but finally, truly, the galaxy was listening to humanity's song. The end.